Hi, this is Kevin Deal. Today we're going to talk about the PrimaLuna Evolution 200 preamp. I am so excited to talk about this preamp. I am right in my element because I love talking about tube preamps. Oh my God. You know, we did something on the EVO 100 preamp, and you folks know what Steve Gutenberg said about it. I've got the quote right here. He said, "I think the PrimaLuna EVO 100 hit the trifecta for value, build, and sound quality. Well done does not begin to describe my feelings about this preamp." That's what I'm talking about. I have made a few enemies in this business by calling manufacturers out because tube preamps period have become a profit center for some companies. What do I mean by that? That you can make a tube preamp that is okay, that's reasonable, sell it for $1,000 and make money, right? The problem is they take that $1,000 or $1,200 preamp and they put it into a big empty box. Here's a tip. Go to Google, type in the name of the manufacturer, the model number of the preamp, and wait. Find out how much it weighs. And then click on Google Images. You'll be able to look inside, and you don't have to be an engineer to know whether or not it's an empty box. And then they come up with this whole thing about, oh, it's a minimalist design. What does that mean? Oh, we use fewer parts. Okay, well, if it's a minimalist design, why are you charging more money for it? Did I tell you I'm a former nuclear engineer? What? There's more former top secret nuclear engineers that work in high-end audio than I've ever seen in my life. And you got what I'm saying? What is all that stuff about? I believe in parts and engineering. I don't believe in a minimalist design. I believe in the right design and then using the best parts you can for how much you have to spend. But the bean counters get involved, especially with more expensive products, right? Or not expensive, bigger companies. And that is not what PrimaLuna has been about. Since day one, it has been, people say, how does PrimaLuna do it? And it's because they choose to do it. You know, they could have just said that this is a $5,000 preamp, and then maybe we'll give you a 10% discount that makes it $4,500, and that would have been just fine. But they did not do that. They sell it for one price. When you go to a dealer, they don't play the baloney discount game and all that. Don't get caught up in that. Get caught up in how much you are paying for it and what you are getting for your money. This preamp weighs 39.6 pounds. Now, comparing it to the EVO 100, what is it that you're getting? You're getting a few things. You're getting larger transformers. Look at these. These are massive toroidal power transformers. Toroids are so much more expensive than regular transformers are, but the beauty of them is they don't radiate EMI outside of the core of the donut. And what they've done is something more. These are what are called potted toroids. They are sealed in a non-microphonic resin and then placed into a mu metal shield, and you do that to protect the part. You do that to reduce mechanical hum that can radiate into the air, and you do that to reduce EMI because preamps are dealing with signals that are minuscule coming out of your phono stage. I mean, just sometimes they're dealing with voltages that are very low. Don't think about getting more power and more watts. Don't do that. Listen to what I'm going to tell you. Tube preamps, typically, any preamp, they really don't need a lot of gain. In fact, most of the time, you're not using any gain at all. You're attenuating the volume. You're lowering the volume. If you take your D to A converter and plug it into your power amp directly, it'll blow you out of the room. So if you buy a preamp that's got 20 dB of gain, 25 dB of gain or more, and there's some crazy ones out there, you're going to stand a chance of getting noise. Thermal noise, because when you have that much gain, you got to do something with it. And that's why people have problems and they go, oh, I tried a tube preamp and I had noise problems all the time, especially if they have high efficiency speakers. That should not occur. This is textbook. 10 dB of gain is right where you want to be. The difference in dynamic range is the difference between light and dark and loud and soft. Get the noise down. Get the noise down. And that's what they've done here. That's what tube rectification is all about. You would think that solid state would have to be quieter, and it is absolutely not true. A tube preamp with solid state rectification is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But manufacturers don't want to use tube rectification because it costs more money. Solid state rectification is a diode. You can do it for $1. Tube rectification means you got to have a 5-volt winding coming off the power supply, you got to have a 5/8R4 tube, you have to have a bunch of wires, and you have to have a tube socket. It is much more expensive to do. But in a PrimaLuna, you got to do that times 2 because this preamp is what's called dual mono. Literally, it is 2 preamps in one box, one for the left channel, one for the right channel. That means you have 2 5/8R4 tubes. This preamp has 4 12AU7s in it. That's another small change from the EVO 100. The circuit's just a little bit more advanced. It's just, but you know what? If you got an EVO 100, don't worry about it. That preamp rocks. But still, it uses 4 12AU7 tubes, and the entire signal path is done with point-to-point wiring. PrimaLuna has done that since day one. It is what they call the Holy Trinity of tube preamp design. Point-to-point wiring, dual mono, tube rectification. Now, I want to show you something here. This is the volume control. It is an Alps Blue Velvet potentiometer. Chips can work great. They can work great, or they can not work great. Every once in a while, I've heard them where they just have a little bit of an electronic sheen to them. There are ways to do an electronic volume control that is absolutely amazing and state-of-the-art, but it doesn't always happen. It depends on the manufacturer. But instead, PrimaLuna spent a lot more money. They could do chips for a few bucks, right? The $9,000 preamp I'm talking about, those chips are $2.50 each. This is about a $50 part at retail. Alps Blue Velvet motorized volume control. It's analog, it tracks perfectly, and it's built to last. Now, this is a real cool thing back here. I want you to think about your parents' TV set, right? And the knob. And remember how your dad had to go get tuner cleaner to clean that knob? It's the same thing with preamps. Selector switches are not your friends. They can become noisy after a period of time. Sometimes they don't turn off the other inputs completely, and you know what I'm talking about. You know, when you were a kid, you had to go turn the knob, and sometimes channel 5 would bleed over into channel 6 and all of that stuff. Instead of having a selector switch, they did it a much more expensive but much more elegant way. There's a controller board right up here behind the faceplate, okay? That controller board does all the logic stuff. And in that logic is this. These are relays. All these blue parts here, these are hermetically sealed relays made by Takamasawa. They're a division of Fujitsu, and they're made in Japan, and the beauty of them is this. Instead of a selector switch that never turns off the other inputs completely, you have relays. You select auxiliary 1, boom, it's going to close, giving you the best contact possible, and a signal path that is literally that long, right? All the other relays are left open, so it acts as a gatekeeper to keep noise out. People that live in New York and San Francisco, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes they'll pick up radio stations through unused inputs. Now, we got to be real about this. You cannot stop all bleed over between inputs. It is impossible because signals literally radiate out in space. But we're doing what we can to reduce them, and we're trying to create something that will last a lifetime, and that's why they've done it this way. Now, right next to those relays, you're going to see little resistors. What's the reason for those? You want to have a perfect high input impedance for all of your source components, right? Now, it only costs a few dollars for PrimaLuna to do that, but I'm telling you, I don't know of another manufacturer that does it. And that's because of the bean counters, right? They go, what does it cost? Oh, $5. No, don't do it. You know, it's not necessary. But PrimaLuna has always done that because they're about performance. Now, I want to talk to you about the output impedance. The output impedance on this preamp is 2,800 ohms. Now, the input impedance, this is going to be compatible with 95% of the power amps that exist in this world. All you got to do to make sure that it is compatible is look at the power amp that you have, look at the specifications, and make sure that the input impedance is 10 times the output impedance. That's the rule, the 10 times rule. So this has an output impedance of 2,800 ohms. You need to have an input impedance of 28,000 ohms or higher. And there are very, very, very few power amps that are not going to meet that criteria. So you want to use this with solid state, get some tube glory? Heck yeah, rock your world. It has a home theater bypass, so if you want to integrate this into a home theater system, you can do that. So by flipping a switch on this, the preamp literally becomes invisible in your system, but you do still get the glory of having tubes in your home theater and getting that additional glory when you're watching movies. It has 2 sets of line outputs. So you can run a pair of power amps and a pair of subs, or 2 pairs of power amps. I mean, God, just look at this thing. Look at it. Oh, and of course, it's got a tape monitor out. Let's look at this power supply. Big Nichicon capacitors that are made in Japan. And then look at all these Duroche capacitors. The power supply is mounted on this board because it's not in the signal path. So it doesn't need to be point-to-point wiring, but it does need to be badass, and that's exactly what this is. The new products have a beautiful rounded faceplate. The remote control has been redesigned. Look, I mean, compare this to what you get from other manufacturers. It has neoprene rings around the edges to protect your furniture, and it feels sublime in your hand. The metalwork is just incredible. So is the finish of the chassis. This is 5 coats of hand-rubbed automotive finish, right? Companies don't do that. You know why? Because if you use matte black with a pebble finish, or like a silver with a pebble finish, it's going to hide all the flaws in the metalwork. To do an automotive finish like this is a lot of work and a lot of expense, but it creates something that's just going to look gorgeous years from now. And then we have this beautiful cage here with the glass ends. I mean, God. And of course, it's removable. I love this product. Oh, and even the new feet, right? Rubber feet can have a tendency to damage wood finishes. And if you use some of these other stickier materials, they can literally adhere and really, really damage wood finishes. What PrimaLuna did was they put a slip sheet on the new feet so it will not react with the finish on your fine furniture if you have that. It's the little stuff like that that makes people keep their PrimaLuna stuff. That's why they have the highest resale value in the industry. You know, and I want to say something about that. I had a guy that was talking to me about this, and he goes, yeah, but this dealer, they've got this other big name thing, and he's going to give me a 20% discount. And I go, how much is the preamp? It's $8,000. I go, so it's $6,400. And so you think that's, and it doesn't weigh even a third what this weighs. And it's an empty box. So you think that's a good idea? You know, he goes, oh, I didn't think of it that way. The whole thing about pricing in high-end audio is that it is completely arbitrary. Sometimes manufacturers go, oh my God, I'm going to price it super, super high, then everyone's going to know that it's really, really good. I don't believe in that. PrimaLuna dealers don't make as much margin on PrimaLuna as they do with other lines. That is the fact. So please understand that when you talk to them, you know, because they don't discount them. I mean, everybody, but God, look at what you are getting for your money. I mean, something that you're going to be inspired by and that's going to last you a lifetime. So look, go to your PrimaLuna dealer. If you need help, reach out to us. Go learn about tubes. Go to the PrimaLuna website, hit the tab that says Vital Info. It says Vital Info for a reason. We will teach you about tubes and teach you about why everyone is so excited about that and why PrimaLuna really does mean music illuminated. Thanks.